Issue 52.
Sonic is training Tails to run faster when he suddenly sees a floating, old-fashioned, glowing detective suit and stops in his tracks. He tells Tails to go home and tell the others. I hope Tails gets believed about that crazy thing happening. And Sonic chases it into a cave and says that he better be careful going in there because he doesn't want anyone getting the drop on him in there. Since when is Sonic the careful type? He then looks away from a really bright light, and then we cut to seeing a bunch of people going to a huge dance hall in another time and another place. It's explained that somehow this place existed while Robotnik was in power, and that this is one place the doctor's all-seeing eyes and ears are not. How? Then we see what looks like Sonic wearing a detective suit, thinking that the voice on the phone said they wouldn't be missed, and he'll see. So he's on an assassination mission? Why is Sonic here doing this? Already I've completely lost interest in the story. Is this another silly what-if scenario? Then that would be fine if you just explained what it was right from the start. He immediately gets infatuated by just seeing Sally, who he's apparently never seen before, so I guess this isn't really Sonic and Sally. So I guess I'll just try to call her Miss Acorn. Miss Acorn says that she's the one who had called him. She says that she knows someone who could beat Robotnik, and all someone would have to do is find her friend Nicole at the Slippery Slide Factory's west side and bring her back to her. And apparently this really is supposed to be Sonic because he calls Uncle Chuck telling him to research the factory with his computer. At first I wondered if this was actually the alternate universe Sonic that I said looked like a second evil Sonic because of how he's dressed like an old-fashioned detective. But he doesn't have the evil mustache. Still, if this is showing you an alternate universe instead of a pointless what-if scenario, then that's cool, but they really should have told you that right from the very beginning. Because as it stands, the story feels like a waste of time so far. Uncle Chuck tells him the factory isn't associated with Robotnik, and Sonic runs in and says that someone was definitely in here looking for something, and wonders what that black stuff is. Oil, obviously. Maybe some robots got destroyed here, but if robots found this place, then they would have found Knothole. So Sonic calls Uncle Chuck and tells him to try to track the guys who might have left the factory by seeing if he can get any traceable signals leaving the area. So Uncle Chuck is the do anything with tech guy now. Nicole, is that you? Chuck magically tracks the robots despite not being a police officer who should have access to tracking equipment or a legal permit to use them. And Sonic goes in the direction he's told to, towards the center of the city at Robotnik's control range. Why would Robotnik have a control range at the center of Knothole? I assumed the minute the film noir story started that this took place in Metropolis actually, because it was a city and not Knothole. So I guess this is a city not ruled by Robotnik because the citizens are roboticized. Or, I mean, the text blurb here says that this is the only place where his all-seeing eyes and ears aren't. So, this is a city ruled by Robotnik. This dance hall just happens to not be under his surveillance even though it's in his city. So Robotnik having a control range in the city, instead of the entire city being his control range, I guess he's more like a mafia boss here that full-on rules every single thing. I don't know. After Sonic destroys the robots and finds Nicole, who is low on power, Robotnik shows up and confuses the hell out of me by talking as if Sally isn't really a princess because he puts princess in quotes, and says that Sonic had been unwittingly helping him the whole time, because he delivered the box that contained the plans to all of his research facilities. Information that could destroy him somehow. How could information about the plans for buildings for doing research destroy a person in any way? The worst part of all of this is that I'm wondering if this is a situation where Sally was actually working for Robotnik and lured Sonic into helping him because of the way Robotnik is talking. Sonic for some reason acts as if Sally being the princess of a rebellion was a bad thing, looking at her with disapproval for it. Maybe it's just that she didn't tell him about it. And Sally makes the excuse he had left too fast. Then she explains more understandably that if she had told him all the details, he might not have wanted the case, and that she downloaded all of Robotnik's files from the Slide Factory into Nicole's memory bank, but dropped Nicole by accident, because putting her in her pockets or something when she was leaving would be too hard. Sonic then leaves with Sally, hiding successfully from Eggman because the power ring's in a blanket. so did the power rings make him faster or more invisible? Sonic tells Uncle Chuck to arrange a plane to fly them back to the forest, which Tails and Rotor will be flying out. They actually have to go to an airport to do it, rather than Sonic simply running out of the city with Sally in the plane landing on the grass outside of it. Fortunately though, a tunnel leads straight to the airport, so it doesn't matter that Robotnik's robots are running around outside. This is really confusing. It looks like it's Sally saying that she works alone because the text bubble is connecting to her, but with the word Sally in the text box, it must be Sonic saying it. It does make somewhat of sense that Sonic would turn her down because he's a free spirit who wouldn't want to be ordered around. Just like how he did that in the IDW comic. But he just got a crush on her, and he clearly doesn't work alone anyways because he's with Tails and Rotor and Uncle Chuck. So what's the point of saying he works alone? What's the point of turning her down? Fortunately, Sally convinces him otherwise immediately after just one panel. So what was the point of making him say no? And Sally talking about her leading a rebellion of her own and 2 teens. That creates intrigue about what kind of people are in a rebellion. Will we ever get to meet them? Or maybe it's just her and Nicole. A whole team rebellion with 2 people. And then it's revealed that Sonic had just been having a weird dream as the story ends with the word end at the corner. So that whole thing about him joining a rebellion with the new Sally was completely pointless. So what's that like from Sally's perspective? What's that like from Miss Acorn's perspective? How, oh great, Sonic is going to... Oh, he's gone? Why did he even leave anyways? Why did he leave that place to begin with? But then another story starts without actually showing the title of it, so maybe it's not really the end and it'll actually be explained what the hell that flying detective suit was all about. Let's hope so, because I want that whole film noir dream thing to stop feeling so pointless. Sally returns home with Nicole and walks right past her friends without saying hello, implying that she's feeling down for some reason. Why? Well actually, Rotor reasons that with everything that's happened in the past few weeks, she must have a lot on her mind. Sally goes to a steel door with Nicole and says, "Here goes nothing," and tries to establish something according to Uncle Chuck's theories. So it looks like she's trying to use Nicole as a magic wand to hack a metal door open. But it's a door in her own home. Why would you need to hack it open? Why would the Freedom Fighters be in a building that has, like, Robotnik stuff in it? Then the backup story actually shows its title, making me lose all hope of ever learning what the flying glowing suit was, so I can officially say fuck that story. The title of this backup story is First Contact, which I could swear was a story title that was already used before. I remember I complained that it had nothing to do with aliens. She goes into a room with a giant computer in it. It says that with Nicole's sophisticated broadcasting system, more like magical, they can uplink to one of Robotnik's orbiting satellites. Orbiting satellite, that's redundant. She's doing this in the hopes of communicating with other Freedom Fighters like Robotnik had done with his mid-bosses around the globe. Because, you know, Uncle Chuck is able to communicate with Knuckles through radio, but, you know, that would be too simple for her. She's gotta do this the complicated way. So why didn't she just tell her friends she was going to do this instead of walking past them? What is it with her being secretive? Maybe it's just her being all, "I'm strong, I can do this alone, I don't need anyone's help." Only being much more subtle about it because she's not a bratty little kid anymore. Except if she doesn't think she needs anyone's help, why is she asking these guys for help? She contacts the other Freedom Fighters and Knuckles and the Chaotix, and for what I can only assume is that they don't already know all of this, she wastes a whole bunch of comic space with a garbage recap of stuff we already know about. We could have just cut past all this to the end and given the previous story enough space to actually explain what the hell the flying suit was. I mean, the only explanation I can think of for it is that Sonic was sent that thing by an alternate dimension detective version of himself to transmit to him the story about what he did, making the adventure technically canon instead of just a dream. But why would he bother to do that? Anyway, Sally tells the other Freedom Fighter groups that she and her friends plan to enter Robotropolis tomorrow morning to ascertain the damage done to the city. There she goes using a big word again. I like this. It shows that she really is smart. And yet she's not smart like Rotor being a gadgeteer. She's a more realistic and believable kind of intelligence. I like that about her. More importantly though, Tomorrow morning? Why the hell didn't you go there right away? If the reason was that she wanted to give her and her friends a long overdue vacation because they could finally take a break, then explain that. Because otherwise it seems very confusing and arbitrary that instead of immediately moving on to World Metropolis and moving on to the important stories, we got pointless issues like 51 and 52 as filler. It would have been fine if the comic made use of that vacation downtime by having character interactions, as in show their personalities bouncing off each other's and showing the characters acting like friends to show us what they do in their downtime, make them more sympathetic and relatable, rather than just people who fight Eggman. Actually use that downtime. But instead they have pointless filler stories to try to pretend they mean something by involving Sonic being trapped in an artificial nightmare, or going on a mission against Eggman that shouldn't be around anymore. Basically trying to aimlessly pretend like Eggman is still there to have stories like that, instead of taking proper advantage of him being gone, the characters having a break from him. Have them have a picnic or go to the beach or something, I don't know. Sally explains that the ultimate weapon that destroyed Eggman also somehow made alternate realities appear randomly around the planet, and explains that Sonic had fell into one in a cave that had disappeared almost immediately. So Sonic was in an alternate dimension, so that literally was Sonic. Okay, that just makes it even more ridiculous, because Sonic somehow didn't know he was in another dimension, despite the continued presence of Robotnik and his knothole being a huge city full of non-roboticized people. Somehow the same Sonic we know and love fell into this zone, failed to recognize the alternate version of Sally, was wearing the detective suit, I don't know, maybe it was sentient and forced him to wear it for kicks and took over his body, so that's why he knew he had Uncle Chuck to call in that zone who's already familiar with Sonic like him, and knew everything else that was going on. That is so stupid. I hope she's mistaken because I liked my explanation a lot better. Hell, that it being all a dream would have made more sense than that. Anyway, Sally reveals an intriguing concept that, just as I thought, knothole being a temporal zone indeed makes it harder to enter and exit, because now the only way in and out is through the Great Oak Slide. Again, this really should have been the case from the start of the series, because with them not really needing to hide knothole from anyone at the moment, it feels like too little too late and would have made a lot more sense for Eggman not knowing where knothole was all that time, instead of it being just a random location in the forest that it could have easily stumbled into. I'll try to stop talking about that every time it's mentioned. The point is this concept is frustrating to me because it sounds great, but it should have been the case right from the start. Otherwise, why didn't he find knothole? Then, Sally loses contact with her friends because the satellite uplink had deteriorated for no reason, right before she could explain to them why they have to beware the zones. Also, why would she know for sure that the zone should be beware? Is she just assuming? And, well, you know, Sally, maybe if you hadn't wasted our goddamn time with a pointless recap about Sonic when being a fugitive, you could have had the time to tell them the vital information. Why the hell didn't you just start with that? And Sally just immediately gives up instead of trying to call again, even though her call was urgent. The main story was by a new writer called Tom Rolson, and he did not make a good first impression. This story was just pointless and confusing. And the sad part is, it would have been so easy for it to have been okay. Just explain right away that this film noir story is what had happened to an alternate universe Sonic. Both showing us an adventure from an alternate universe Sonic, which would have been cool, and explaining why he didn't recognize the Sally in there and immediately knew to call his Uncle Chuck and knew about the city he was living in not being knothole. Explain what the hell the flying glowing suit was. Maybe it was a message carrier sent from the other Sonic to tell Sonic his story. Now all that's missing, which I can't figure out, is why he didn't bother to tell Sonic about that one random mission of his in the first place. He doesn't need to know that. You just confused him and wasted his time. I could have accepted this story as all a weird dream if it wasn't for the flying suit before he fell into that zone, which was never explained. The problem is, for not going with the most logical explanations and instead expecting me to believe that this guy is the prime Sonic having fallen into another universe but not acting like it, you create an avalanche of plot holes from him just immediately knowing where he is and what to do, and not recognizing Sally, and knowing that he's a detective now, as if his brain got replaced with someone else's. This story was just confusing and stupid and pointless. It's like, it would only be satisfying how he succeeded in that mission if we knew that that mission was going to lead to other missions which would eventually lead to that Robotnik being taken down. But because this is the only time we're ever going to see this universe, that mission feels pointless. And we never do know if Sally finds a replacement for Sonic after he leaves that zone. In the second story, by Carl Bollers, it was mostly an over-glorified recap, most pointlessly of the events of Sonic being framed again that didn't need to happen since they don't matter anymore. So why are they even being recapped in the first place? Sally looked like an idiot by messing up and not thinking to warn her friends about what she called them about right away. She could have just opened up with, "Don't go in the newly created zones, they could be dangerous," and then explained herself. And she looked like an idiot by not even thinking to try to call again when the signal cut out. I feel like this issue didn't even need to exist. People make fun of Penders, but this issue wasn't written by him at all, and it just felt so stupid and confusing and pointless and unengaging. It all just screams, this is a postscript season. The writers didn't expect the comic to continue after the main villain was defeated, and so they're panicking and don't know what to do yet. And that's also why we're going to go into the Knuckles comic. I assume they needed a little bit more time to figure out what they were going to do in the main story after that. This downtime between Eggman's defeat and Sonic and his friends reclaiming Robotropolis should have been taken advantage of for some light-hearted stories about their friendship, with them enjoying their free time just doing whatever because Robotnik's not around. But instead of celebrating, they just try to have the same plots as if Robotnik was still around, still shoving Robotnik into the past few issues with every excuse they can get, even though we're supposed to be having a break from him. I can't wait until this downtime filler is over then. Because if that's how they're wasting it, then I'm just mad at Sally for arbitrarily not heading straight through Robotropolis the minute Robotnik was destroyed instead of waiting and giving Snively some time to prepare for them.